Obligatory, I'm on mobile and still a new poster, usually a lurker. I thought this group might enjoy this little gem from my past. I was about 18 or 19 and making my rounds at the local, rhyming, craft store perusing the clearance end caps for treasures. I happened into the scrapbooking section alongside a sweet, but obviously overwhelmed woman in her 80s or 90s. We shared some amiable chit-chat and she confessed that she was in over her head with a project for her granddaughter's wedding invitations. She'd agreed to help make them and was trying to find the see-through paper with no luck and was so forlorn. Well, my crafty matriarchs raised me to be helpful and kind, so I suggested that she was probably looking for vellum and quickly showed her both rolls and flat sheets. She was overjoyed and thanked me profusely. We parted ways and I had that warm fuzzy feeling that comes with doing a good deed. Then, a dreaded Karen swooped down upon me. "Karen, you. Come here." She literally grabbed my shoulder and dragged me to the next aisle. "You are out of these scrapbooks and I demand you bring me one from the back." Me, thinking fast, put on my sweetest customer service face. "Mom, follow me." I led her to the swinging doors that led to that magical wonderland known as the back room. Me, if you stand here long enough, someone who works here will surely be happy to help you. I flashed my sweetest, kindest smile again, turned upon my heels and walked away, leaving her dumbfounded in my glorious wake. Ah, sweet petty victory. I have a client who is not kind, and I can't help myself when I talk to him. I have no patience for people who aren't kind. Here are two stories. I posted the second one previously when I had a different username. Me, hi, is this X? Client, who else would it be? Me, well, I could have dialed the wrong number. Client, I guess so. Client hangs up. Client, where is X? Me, he is in his office, would you like to talk to him? Client, I asked for him, didn't I? Me, no, you asked where he was. Client hangs up. He clearly isn't used to anyone standing up to him, no matter how passively. We will see how far we get during our next conversation. My wife is great, let me start off with that. I am really shocked I ended up married to her. Everybody that knows me never lets me forget how lucky I am. She is like a master at being functional, whereas I'm not. When we do household chores together, she gets this beatific expression of contentment. It's adorable. About 3 months ago, we were both in the yard. I was mowing and she was gardening. We live in WA state. It is warmish here in the winter. I couldn't help but notice how wonderful she looked. I stopped mowing, went over to her, and said something like, "I love you so much, you look so homely." She seemed fine. A week or so later, I said it again. "You're the most homely person I've ever met." She didn't seem to respond as expected. I just figured she was down. See, I thought homely was like some adorable Snow White type shoot. Homes are cozy and make you feel safe, right? Here was my wife, going around the house, dusting and playing with the cat, saying hello to houseplants, and doing it in a way that gave me cozy, or what I thought were homely feelings. I kept calling her homely for another month or so. I could feel some distance between us but couldn't source it. Then it happened. I got home from work, and went to give my, now sad and confused, wife a hug. "My God, you are just so homely." She pushed me away, looked me right in the eyes, and said, "I don't think you know what that means. You've been saying it for months, and I really think you have no idea." So I looked it up, and found that, at least in America, no, homely doesn't mean cute, or cozy. It means ugly or unattractive. I thought I was complimenting my wife whenever I called her homely, when I was really just killing her soul a little bit at a time. With that unfortunate misunderstanding fixed, we are now doing fine. DL, Doctor, I thought homely meant cute, and ended up calling my wife homely for months. Found out that it means ugly. We both died inside. This story happened just this week. I received a ticket from a hair salon that reads something like, "The box-like device plugged into the computer doesn't work." Curious, I call them up. The following exchange ensues. Me, hi, so tell me about that device that's not working. Can you describe what it does, what it looks like, or if there's anything written on it? Them, yes, sure, but keep in mind I'm not very good at computers first. Me, that's all right, I'm good enough at computers for the both of us. Them, okay, so it looks like a black box. I insert rolls of paper inside and the paper is supposed to come out but it doesn't. Me, you mean a printer? Them, yes, I wasn't sure what the right word at, I didn't want to say the wrong word. After that I remoted into the computer, fixed something with the printer driver configuration, and the mysterious device once again spat out the rolls of paper after adding ink on them. You gotta love the users. In the mid-2000s I was a Mormon missionary. If any have knocked on your door, you know the type. A pair of young men, wearing white shirts, ties, and dark slacks with very naive looks on their smiling faces. And asking if you want to change churches. Sometimes mistaken for Jehovah's Witnesses. Often knocking at the most inconvenient times. Usually trying their best to do what their culture has told them is their God-given duty. I was living in the Cincinnati area. My companion and I rode bikes wherever we went. In the summer, it can be pretty hot and humid. We didn't have many wardrobe options. The uniform is the uniform after all. But we could wear short-sleeved white shirts, still with a tie and dark slacks. Riding our bikes we had pretty nice helmets, with a visor and everything, so posh. Because backpacks were verboten, we would usually wear cross-chest satchels. Coupled with our black name tags, I have to admit we looked a bit like bike cops. Well, I think someone else thought so too. We were pedaling as fast as we could to the next neighborhood for another long day of people not wanting to talk to us. Being a Mormon missionary can be a soul-crushingly monotonous experience. All of a sudden a speeding car cut right in front of us, making us put on the brakes as hard as we could. A flustered man jumped out of his car and says, "You need to call in a massive case of road rage." Apparently he encountered a driver in the form of a Karen. He saw us riding down the road and thought he was in luck encountering some bike cops who could call it in. I wished we could have helped him. But we told him that we weren't cops. He looked down at our name tags and a mixture of crestfallen deflation and fear swept over this man's face. He was afraid we were going to ask him if he had found Jesus or something. We apologized that we couldn't help him. Crestfallen, he got back in his car and drove away. My companion and I looked at each other smiling, knowing this would be the most excitement we would have all day. First time poster, obligatory posting from mobile. Hope this post entertains you. So this didn't happen to me, it happened to my coworker, but I was at the register right next to her when it happened. Cast, friend, my coworker who did the MC, old man, antagonist of the story, and me, take a wild guess. This happened a few years ago when I was 17 and my friend was 18. We worked at a grocery store that had 4 registers set up in groups of 2. So me and my friend were the ones on 2 of the registers, meaning we shared the same behind-the-counter space. We both have customers in line and are checking them out. I can hear everything going on as we are literally 2 feet away from each other. Enter old man. Old man looked a lot older than us, so he's obviously too old to be hitting on an 18-year-old, but that's exactly what he does. Paraphrasing because it's been a few years, but you get the gist. Old man, hey there beautiful. Friend, in customer service voice, hello, how are you today? Old man, better now that I got to see someone as gorgeous as you. Friend, that's nice, did you find everything okay? Old man, oh yes, I did, winks. At this point I'm only half paying attention to the person I'm checking out and focusing on the conversation happening behind me, because gag. Old man, can I take you out on a date? Friend, no, thank you, your total is _. Old man, come on, please. I'll take you out somewhere nice, you can get all dressed up and fancy. Friend, no, I am not interested. Here's your receipt. Old man, can I at least get your phone number, gorgeous? QMC. Friend, sure thing. She proceeds to grab one of our store's business cards that obviously has the store phone number on it, hands it to him and says, here you go. Have a nice day. Old man is angry and grabs his groceries and storms out. I turned and asked my friend if she was okay and everything, and she was a little shaken up but told me that she was glad she got to mess with him. Not sure how many other customers heard the interaction, but we just laughed about it and went back to our work. When I was in high school, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store, and after one bad day, my dad told me that there are people in this world that are miserable in their own lives and seek out people, like cashiers, they can abuse to make themselves feel better. I've worked other customer service jobs, one in tech support which was brutal, but still my worst customer ever was from the days as a cashier. There is no other way to describe this person. I was waiting for my next customer and a woman was pushing her cart towards my line when this older woman in an electric cart runs into the other ladies and pushes into my line. She then stopped and yelled at me to put her stuff on the conveyor belt. I did this, and when I got behind the register again she yelled at me to go slow so she could make sure I was doing it right. So I rang each item up slowly and started bagging. She yelled that she wanted the bags light and double bagged. So I went to do that. Apparently I wasn't doing that right because she yelled that she didn't want double plastic, she wanted double paper and double plastic, 4 total bags for every 2 to 4 items. I didn't argue, I just wanted her out of my line because she was really abrasive and abusive. When I was done bagging, she yelled that I needed to put her groceries in her cart. When I was done, since apparently I didn't give her the reaction she wanted from her complaining about my job and making me do all that ridiculous stuff, she aimed a bit higher. She decided that a 16-year-old female cashier who obviously had confidence issues, otherworldly, why wouldn't she have stood up against the abuse at one point, and showed nothing but courtesy, was an appropriate person to abuse further. She said to me exactly this: if you just cut your hair, you could see what you were doing. As my hair had not been in my face, despite the fact that I was letting my bangs grow out, this was just a final jab from someone who was so bitter in her own life she wanted to make a teenager cry or get angry. That didn't make it hurt less, didn't make me less angry. But because I wasn't going to let her see me cry, I clenched my teeth and said as calmly as I could, "Ma'am, I can see just fine as is." And let her go without another word. The woman behind her is still the best customer I have ever had. Because despite my supervisor and manager witnessing this older woman and me having colleagues on both sides of me that were much older, she was the only one who cared. She apologized for the woman in front of me, said my hair was nice, told me not to let rude people get me down, asked if I was alright and thanked me for everything. My husband does a pretty awesome thing by helping every day with the dishes. However, he also neglects to use soap. Dishes are frequently in need of being rewashed. Sometimes there's still a visible layer of grease. It's been a topic of discussion several times. Finally, feeling unappreciated and resentful, he touts that he is the only one doing them and if I wanted them done right then I should be helping more. He goes on about not even needing the soap and that how he does it is good enough. My dear son, who loves to help, 6 years old, speaks up. Because I have shown him how to do the dishes, he decides he'll offer a free lesson on the spot. Stepping up to the sink, arranging his step stool, he grabs the soap and just pours and pours and pours all over the dishes. This just kills my husband's need for control and his financial sensibilities. That soap costs all of one at the dollar store. But my son promises to help him from now on. Across from the kitchen I applaud his efforts and his consideration. I suggest he uses a tad bit less and he agrees that a cup only needs to be about half full of soap to have enough or a plate only needs a thin coating across its surface to have enough. From now on, my son checks in on the dishes. He serves as a voluntary informant to my husband when a dish has needed to be rewashed or when my husband is using far too little, in my son's opinion, soap. Being that he is only 6, he has no real sense of portion control and that probably won't change anytime soon. My husband has gained a willing helper and the dishes are clean. We've gone through lots more bottles of soap. This happened in the mid-70s when I was about 17, insert boomer joke here. The cast of characters includes me, the store manager, SM, and barely mentioned roommate, RM. RM and I worked at a plant just outside of Orlando, Florida. We had gone to school together in a rural area in another state and in this story could be referred to as country gone to town. One weekend RM and I decided to catch the bus to a town on the outskirts of Orlando because they had, gasp, a 2-story mall. Who had ever heard of such? Anyhow, the bus trip was almost an hour there. We arrived at the mall, marveled at the size, spent the day, and did some shopping. I bought a pair of shoes at one of the stores. On Monday I wore the new shoes to work. It had rained a bit and I tried to dodge puddles but still ended up walking through rain. End of the day when I got home and took the shoes off they were disintegrating. The soles were basically glued on, badly, and the shoes were unwearable. Okay, so now I had to blow another day off riding the bus back to the giant mall and returning the shoes. I carried the new shoes and the receipt to the shoe store and explained to the SM how I had bought the shoes there only a week earlier, worn them once, the sole was separating from the shoe and I just wanted to return them and get my money back. Seemed simple enough to my naive 17-year-old self. SM told me he would not refund my money but he would give me another pair of the same shoes. I balked. I asked him, why would I want another pair of these shoes? They fall apart at the slightest hint of water and I don't want shoes I can only wear once and then have to return. His response, while he puttered around at the desk doing everything but engaging with me, was, nope. I'll give you another pair but I won't return your money. I told him I wasn't interested in riding the bus there every weekend to return shoes that could only be worn once and I just wanted my money back. This time he told me, all I can do is give you a different pair of the same shoes. Then he went back to ignoring me. I developed a plan at that point, got his attention and told him, That's all you can do? You want to know what I can do? I can take these crappy shoes and this receipt and stand just outside your door. Every customer that tries to come in here will hear about how I bought these shoes 1 week ago and wore them exactly once. Then I can show them these shoes and the receipt and let them know you won't give me my money back, you'll only give me another pair of crappy shoes. That's what I can do. Having said that, I turned around with my shoes and receipt and headed for the door. I had not taken 3 steps when I heard ka-ching. Ah! The sound of the cash register opening. Yes. I got my refund. In fact, he did not even bother with the exact change. He rounded it up to the nearest dollar and took the shoes back. Sometimes you gotta hit 'em where it hurts. A customer came in fuming because other customers weren't wearing masks and blaming us for not enforcing it. And she was mad at us for not wearing masks and accusing us of being careless and telling us she had half a mind not to come in anymore. So here's the thing, I'm a public health major who all but has her degree in the mail. I'm done in 2 weeks. There are about a dozen or more extra precautions that I specifically have adopted because I'm aware of public health precautions. And honestly, I started them the second to last week of February before we had to switch to Togo only because I saw this coming. That aside, this woman is yelling at us about how careless we are. Meanwhile I watched as she left her car with these gloves on that she's touched God knows how many surfaces with, tooting her horn for wearing them, and touching those gloves to her mask every 5 words to adjust it. Not to mention that a majority of the customers we see are first responders or other essential employees, making her just some older woman who doesn't want to give up the luxury of going out to eat, yet feels she's somehow in the right compared to us. She is so lucky that I had to answer the phone while she was on her rant because my co-worker is kind enough to just nod and agree, and I would have had 1,001 questions and responses to give her to let her know how wrong she was. This happened a few months ago and thought I'd share it with you guys. I had the best conversation with a guest who was scheduled to arrive the following day. He called asking about an early check-in. We were sold out the day before his arrival, so you know how that goes. Here's how our phone conversation went. Kid, I was told I am guaranteed an early check-in. Me, I'm sorry we can't guarantee an early check-in, but I can put in a request and we will try our best to get your room ready at your requested time. Kid, I don't like being lied to. I'm very smart. I went to, insert local private university name, so I'm smart and know what I'm talking about. Me. Okay. Sir. We are sold out tonight. All the guests that are leaving tomorrow are entitled to be in their rooms until 12/noon. They may or may not stay until noon, but... Kid cuts me off. Kid, I really need my room as I am the groom and need my room early to get ready, and what are you going to do about this? I worked at hotels too, I know how it works. Me. I'm trying to explain the situation so you can understand why I cannot guarantee anything before our regular check-in. I'm sure we will have people departing before noon and our HK team do arrive a little later than 9 on weekends, but we will communicate with them to see if any king rooms depart early enough, and we'll try to have a room cleaned and ready by 12/noon. First off, this kid sounds like a moron, and him throwing around his overpriced degree means nothing to me. I went to a higher-ranked university, which also doesn't mean much, and honestly acting like that it matters, you just sound like a douchebag. So I live with my girlfriend and her sister plus sister's friend. The sister and her friend are obese and have only left the house for work and to dine out in the 10 months we've lived together. They have never had friends over either, though they are each other's friend. I think you become who you associate yourself with, so I almost don't speak to them and mind my business usually by staying out of the house and keeping busy with friends, family, sports, work, etc. This is not to say I'm better than them, but I never noticed they can go days without going outside until quarantine had us all work from home. I feel like the loner in my home that we all rent, and I'd if isolating myself is rude or necessary. About 30 years ago, I worked in a collegiate-themed clothing store. I was coming in for a shift and was dressed in typical clothes from the store, their brand jeans, a sweatshirt with the logo, and a ball cap. No staff out front, which meant the person who was in the stock room. As I head to the back of the store, a lady comes in and looks around. I put my stuff on the floor, near the stockroom door, and go offer to help her. Lady looks at me and says no thanks and keeps looking. I shrug and grab my stuff and head in the back. I tell the other staffer that there is a lady looking around out front and store my jacket and bag in my locker. I take a few minutes to tidy my hair and reset my ball cap and head back out with my register keys on a lanyard. We did not have name badges, owner didn't like them, and I start to tidy the shelves and racks. The lady walks up to me and asks what I think I am doing. I tell her that I am tidying the displays. I just kept going with me work, and heading back to get more stock to replenish. I come back out and the lady is having a fit. She is just freaking out on my co-worker. Apparently this lady thought I didn't work there and wanted to know why he was just letting me run amok. Now, for clarification. Most of the staff were guys in their early 30s, I was a girl in my early 20s. I worked between this location and the ladies' shoe store owned by the same parent company, in the same mall. Normally I worked evenings here as that's when the younger crowd was invading the mall. Coworker tries to explain that I do work there and in fact am a shift lead. They go around in circles for about 10 minutes. Finally, she grabs a business card off the counter and calls the manager. Lady is losing it, telling the manager that the staff are letting their little chippy girlfriends run amok in the store. Manager shows up, and walks right up to me. Lady has a huge smile on her face, thinking I'm busted and might get charged. Manager asks me about the co-worker's girlfriend hanging around the store. I explain what happened. Manager looks at lady and asks her if I am the girlfriend she was referring to. Lady confirms. Manager tells her that I am not co-worker's girlfriend, I am a long-term, trusted employee. Edit, it was a very anticlimactic ending. Lady got embarrassed and left. This is real, not a Karen-type incident. Had lots of those when I worked in food service though. So this is my first post and English is not my first language, so please bear with me. I know this sounds weird but hear me out. I ordered pizza yesterday paying cash. I only had a €100 bill and the pizza guy did not have enough change. He called his boss who suggested he took the money, drive to a gas station to change it to then return and bring me my change. I was nervous about it since I could potentially lose €75 if he did not return, but I agreed. He did come back rather quickly and I felt really bad that he had to do the extra work, so I tipped €15. Thing is, he looked at me like I was crazy and did not want to accept it, but I incited and apologized for not having the correct amount in cash. He then accepted the tip but left on his way out, so now I'm wondering if it really was inappropriate to tip this much. I'm not in the US, so tipping is not that usual here. This isn't a too interesting story. DL, doctor, guy sleeping on property, outside. Refuses to come in. Encouraged to do so, firmly, complies eventually. Hi. This is my second time posting here. I work as graveyard second for my local homeless shelter. My last post was a couple weeks back. In the last post I mentioned boss man cut off access of restrooms to the public. He did this to encourage those camping outside to either check in, or move along. This has worked. We now have maybe 1 or 2 people per night out there, as opposed to at least 20. Tonight, our younger security guard, I think I named him as James, in my last post, went on a property walk at midnight. He found a guy sleeping on the grass adjacent to the sidewalk, so on our property. James gave the options of check in or move along. You can't sleep on property. Dude, belligerently, told James to flip off, he does what he wants, and this is public property. At 1:30, I head out. Advise the same options, get the same response. Old boy tells me he's on the sidewalk and it's public property. I advise old boy that all of his body, except his feet, are in the grass within the limits of our property. I advise that, as well, the sidewalk is public property, but it is illegal to sleep on it. See comments section. I advise that security at our site has been asked by our city to discourage the homeless population from sleeping on the sidewalks adjacent to our property, as well as to discourage them from sleeping in the city-owned grass lot behind our property. I advise 2 warnings have been issued. That if I find he is still there next I check, dispatch will be contacted. I advise that when city police arrive, they will firmly, yet politely, advise old boy to leave. If he is compliant, things will end there. If he provides the same belligerent pushback, he will be forced to leave by less polite means. Within 5 minutes he was checked into our nightly overflow. The place I work at has a very similar name to another pharmacy in my city. Ours is called Crystal City, not the actual name, and the other one is Crystal Town. It's pretty regular to get a patient call the wrong place or the doctor fax to the wrong place, but over the past week it's gotten much worse. Recently we got a fax that was clearly meant for Crystal Town, so I called in to tell the doctor. Instead the people at the clinic argued that it was sent to the right place. I kept telling them that we were Crystal City, but all they kept saying was that our system says it was sent to Crystal Town, so you're wrong. I was literally holding the fax in my hand. I think we've gotten about 20 to 30 or so faxes from doctors in the past week that were meant for the other pharmacy, upside down face. My old assistant manager got let go after 17 years of incompetence. They apparently never pulled closed signature cards in all that time, so we have an unbelievable amount. We started going through them one by one in late December and so far filled a wall of boxes with them, but finished the main group of filling cabinets today. We estimate we have pulled at least 20,000 pages if records, and are left with only a few thousand physical signature cards. The oldest card we have found was from the early 1960s, while most are from the early 2000s. The Rona has meant our lobby is closed, so one of our tellers has been working on this almost exclusively for 2 months, in addition to the rest of us trying to knock out as many as possible between customers. The best image of how much work this was? The letter M had 2 filing cabinets to itself, now it fits in less than 1 drawer. Thankfully most of it can be shredded, but at least 6 boxes will need to be stored for 7 years. Now we have just 3 more overstuffed filing cabinets left to tackle, but they are legal docs from the last 25 years, so we expect them to take another 6 months to complete. Mandatory disclaimer: this happened 20 minutes ago. It's quarantine, so I'm upstairs with my dad and we are watching Live PD and I see a homemade crack pipe, or so I assume, and I made a joke about me smoking crack, very sarcastically, and I am a 17-year-old. He didn't laugh, but I move on with my life. I decide I'm going to take a bath and ask him for a lighter so I can light my candle, which he tosses me but says he wants back right away. So I'm in the bathroom after unexpectedly starting my period with period shoots, so I'm on the toilet for a while and I can't come out. Meanwhile he is calling me asking what's taking so long and where his lighter is. So I ask if he can have it back after my bath, to which he asks why can't he have it now. He insists, so I shove the lighter onto the door and keep doing my thing. He comes downstairs and starts knocking, so I have to quickly clean myself up and answer and explain to him that I'm on my period with period shoots, to which he says, I thought you were smoking crack. TL doctor, my dad's paranoid and thought I was smoking crack because I made a joke about crack and asked for his lighter. Today, I goofed at work. I work at a popular home improvement store. We close at 9, so I made the announcement, please bring your final selections to the front for purchase, yada yada. Well, I put the phone back on the receiver. Then I was joking with my boss about how one day when it was just employees that I want to make an announcement right before we take all the money out of the registers to count it, that I wanted to be like, get your chute and get up here. And we were laughing and joking about it, and suddenly one of my co-workers comes up and goes, which phone did you make the announcement on? And I was like, that one, and pointed to the phone that I use, and he goes, yeah, it's still on the intercom. We still had 3 customers in the store, so every single one of them plus all the employees heard me say that. I've never wanted to die more in my life, but my managers were absolutely rolling laughing. TL, doctor, I accidentally told our customers and employees to get their chute and check out. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. It kills me when people try to do things online and then call our call center, city government agency, because they cannot maneuver their way online. Mind you, we don't offer technical assistance, nor can we go online and see what you see. We handle things like noise complaints, price gouging, etc. Caller, I'm online and I'm trying to view my parking tickets. I can't see them. The site isn't working. Me, did you enter the plate and state for the vehicle? Caller, yes. Knowing from personal experience, you must also enter the type for the car as well. It's literally right next to where you enter the plate and state. Me, did you enter your type of vehicle? Caller, no, I got it, thanks. And hashtag X200B. Side note, I also think just working at a call center and dealing with so many customers, mostly rude and unpleasant, I easily get irritated with colors. Am I the only one? First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And hashtag X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the imps got there, let alone even go look at her. And hashtag X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. I love teaching but I hate my job so much. This school has been a disaster for me ever since I was hired. Small classrooms that can barely squeeze 10 people in. Faulty construction work. Students with behavior issues. Low funding. Low pay. Working overtime. Competitive staff members who are constantly scared of losing their jobs every day so they suck up hardcore to the administration. Constant changes in the school schedule. Stupid tasks that the administration keeps assigning to teachers. Meetings that don't amount to anything. Wrongful dismissal of staff. Constant lies, lies, and more lies. Passive-aggressive administration that hates teachers asking questions that makes them feel challenged or threatened. Supplies and resources not ordered properly or not ordered at all. Dangerous playground zone. Safety issues everywhere. Unhygienic school. I'm done with this school and because of the pandemic, no jobs are open anywhere. I'm done putting up with this. I feel like crying. I feel like dying. I feel like giving up on life. I don't know where to turn. Do you all have any suggestions? We got the first call today. I am blessed with a store owner who understands how a virus works. They have chosen to keep the store drive-through only and only call in our drive-through orders. We got our first call today trying to shame on us for not opening our lobby. I can't believe people are actually dumb enough to not understand how an aerosol virus that can stay in the air for 3 hours or more with air circulation being a thing could mean that people being inside eating and drinking and carrying on without their masks on could completely contaminate everyone and everything in the restaurant. Tired face, tired face, tired face. In short, woman calls store and talks crap because her 2 carloads of folks couldn't dine into her DT-only store. I work at a small local store that sells food and is thus still operating. We're next to a store in a similar situation. Yesterday, a man called to ask if the store next door was still open. I popped out and confirmed it was, he thanked me, and that was that. A long while later, a woman stormed in and began ranting at the top of her lungs about the neighbor's store. They were closed. Could we believe it? After she drove so far. What jerks. The website said they'd still be open, but updating it must be too hard for them. They must have decided they'd had enough business and closed early, the ingrates. Etc. on and on. Apparently my tight, non-committal responses weren't registering. Eventually she asked if there was a way to get into that store from the back alley. What? I said I didn't know and she stormed out again, presumably to try and break into the other store? See if they were secretly open and hiding from her? I have no idea. She eventually came back and bought some things from us, with a lot of snapping about no, not that. If we suggested options she didn't like, and left. Turns out it was her husband on the phone calling to confirm our neighbor was open. Shockingly, Time-sensitive information can change in an hour and a half, and one store does not control the unrelated stores around it. Who knew? This morning there was a car meet. I was leaving walking to my car as everyone was in their cars waiting to drive out and cruise together as a caravan. There were about 50 or so supercars lined up, revving their engines, waiting to head out. Lamborghinis, Ferraris, McLarens, you name it, it was there. I have a convertible, and the top was down but the doors were locked out of habit. So instead of reaching for my keys and unlocking the door like a normal person, I thought it would be cool to smoothly hop into the driver's seat like I've seen in countless movies. Granted, I've never attempted to hop into a convertible before this, and the first time was going to be in front of a caravan of supercars and their owners. So without thinking twice, I attempted to hop into my driver's seat only to realize I didn't jump high enough for my feet to enter with me as well, resulting in a huge face plant into the center console area. I presumed to get up, give everyone the thumbs up that I was okay, and attempted to drive away as soon as possible. But because my legs were in pain from hitting the car and my failed attempt of being smooth, I wasn't able to balance out my clutch properly and proceeded to stall the car in front of everyone. Doctor, I tried hopping into my car like they do in movies and failed horribly in front of a caravan of supercar owners. Then I stalled the car trying to leave. I'll just provide a few links here, you can find many more by Googling. A few UFO places have picked it up too. I find it weird almost no one provides a primary source. This case must have been in the press of the day, so yay. Scientist working in Antarctica in 1965 during the Cold War suddenly leaves with a strong purposeful stride away from camp. His footprints end at a specific point. It seemed he was heading for, not aimless wandering or hesitant walking. It is claimed his footprints, which showed direction and purpose, just ended. No body found in that spot, and obviously Antarctica has no scavengers or predators. I'm guessing he was picked up either by snowmobile or sled, or possibly the point was the location of a survival cache with food, extra clothing / thermal blankets and skies to reach a point further on. And #X200B. This screams either defection to the SU, or a spy who realized he had been found out and arranged extraction. It's a certainty both the US and SU were using their stations as cover for various espionage-related purposes. It wouldn't be hard to smuggle out an extra man. Anyone else interested in this case? I'll admit if the details are embellished or just lies, my theory withers. So this happened about 30 minutes ago and is a great start to the weekend. I was cleaning up the dishes after making the kids breakfast, and as I normally do, I let our dog lick the dirty plates in the dishwasher. I feel like it's such a joy for her that I can't deprive her of that. As I finish the dishes, her head is much further in than it normally is. I tell her to get out, which she tries to do. In the process, the ring on her collar that holds tags clips onto the bottom shelf of the dishwasher, which is completely full of bowls and plates because we didn't run the dishwasher the night before. Like any dog, she immediately panics and takes off. I grab the bottom shelf initially, but she is so scared she jerks away and starts running, breaking almost all of the plates and bowls. Wonderful, broken dishes all over the floor. By the time I can get this under control, I notice a horrible smell. It smells like an evil combination of stale fish and a moldy sponge. There are some brown spots on the floor and they are pungent. After getting all the broke bowls and plates cleaned up, I turn my attention to this foul substance. I attack this stuff with 409 then bleach. Pretty much any cleaning substance I can get my hands on. It's all cleaned up at this point, but the smell still lingers, even overpowering the smell of bleach. After a quick Google search, I come to learn that some dogs, when scared, will express their anal glands. TLDR. I let my dog lick the dirty dishes. She got caught on the shelf. Broke all the bowls and plates while expressing her anal glands. Now my kitchen smells like rotten fish. I'm a manager for a big chain and honestly, I don't know if I'll go back. I've been fed up with the late nights, weekends and holidays since I was promoted. I really don't want to go back to that life. I also am worried about corporate making us do some ridiculous policies we just aren't qualified for. Rumors about temperature checks, not letting people in who have a cough, etc. I hate the guests. I'm fed up with their stupid questions and bogus complaints. The only problem is the theater is my only work experience and I don't have a college degree, so I have literally nothing to fall back on, which sucks. Do you think you'll go back? Managers, supervisors, crew? Why or why not? Hope you're all staying safe out there. Me and Beth were friends for 2 years. She was very paranoid about my true intentions in the friendship and could be very hostile. She also suffered from BPD. Over the course of our newfound friendship, she behaved nicely and normally. Earlier this year I got in a huge fight with my family and moved out to cool off. I stayed with Beth, which I was grateful for, and yes, I paid rent. One night during my stay, Beth was smoking on the balcony and had the door open. Her charger was plugged into an outlet inside the house, and I asked her to close the door due to my asthma. She looked at me like I was a total annoyance and said I need to charge my phone. I replied, yeah, I know, but can you please finish your cigarette first and then charge it? And Beth replied, not really, can you go somewhere else? I said the smoke will travel through the house, and she just said, can you please just let me chill? So I left and went to her room. The smoke did travel. In fact, her friend who was with her said, Jesus Beth, you smoked out the whole house, haha. My chest hurt for hours and I had to use my puffer twice. I didn't even want to talk to her after this. I left her house and went back to my family the next day. I ghosted her on everything and basically just wallowed because I felt so unimportant. She texted my girlfriend a month later basically laying out that I was a toxic friend and a horrible person, that I should feel bad for what I did to her, and honestly the whole situation has me really depressed. My GF didn't reply and I haven't said a word to her in months. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his two sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. Today I was on the phone with my husband while he was on his way home from working the night shift. A little background, we have been trying to get pregnant. I took a test a few days ago and got a faint positive but wanted to test again to be sure. I woke up early and didn't want to take the test without him. So I call him to distract myself so I don't pee myself before he gets home. Finally he tells me he is pulling into our apartment complex. I run to the bathroom, throw down my phone and go. Well, unbeknownst to me my phone is recording, and after I have used the test I have very loud diarrhea. It's so loud it shocks me and I say, oh man, I have diarrhea too. I finish going, wash my hands, pick up my phone, and realize that a recording was sent to my husband. I play it because I'm curious about what was recording. Turns out the whole thing was recorded and sent to my husband. He walks through the door and he is shaking with laughter and I realize he heard the whole thing. Good news, he still loves me. TL, Doctor, I accidentally recorded myself having violent diarrhea and then the recording got sent to my husband. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I work at a credit union in the main branch and was hoping that telling people that we're closed and they came after the cutoff was going to be the worst of my closing troubles. But no. Someone either shot up before they came to the branch or they did it in the line, but they nodded off, and after we'd closed and did the last few transactions they were still there. A banker went out and poked them nothing. So security and 911 was called. They roused him and he was arrested. I'm sure he failed their sobriety test and it seemed like they found stuff in his car. If it's not one thing it's another, though. I mean really. Come on, people. I should start this by saying I have a mild form of agoraphobia, otherwise the story won't make any sense. Today was the first time I went out in 72 days, because I had to buy some painkillers at the chemist's. I went inside the shop alone but my mom gave me a lift. After this, she insisted on going to the grocery store. We went there, and the sign at the door explicitly said that only one person per family could enter. She forced me to enter anyway, saying that the sign didn't matter because I'm a minor and minors should be with their parents. What she said would have made sense if I was a child, but I'm 17. She definitely could have let me stay in the car. But no, she forced me to go inside the shop anyway with her. Noticing that everyone inside is by themselves and also giving me very dirty looks, I start having a panic attack. As someone with agoraphobia, I felt totally out of place and like everyone was judging me. So I panic and start crying like an idiot begging my mom to let me go. Eventually, she let me go after a clerk said I wasn't allowed to be there. My mom, like the Karen she is, you know, those ladies who always say "Can I speak to the manager?" started saying that the clerk was wrong and having an argument with her. That scene was absolutely terrible. So yeah, it was my first time outside after 2 months and I get a horrible panic attack. I cried for about an hour after, while my mom was also yelling at me because she thought she was right. Needless to say, I'm spending the whole summer at home. Doctor, my mom forces me to go inside a grocery store with her where more than one person per family isn't allowed, and I get a panic attack because I felt really out of place. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of you 11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. This semester, I was taking a computer class that used a lot of video editing software. Since I already know Adobe Premiere fairly well, I did good on almost every single assignment. The teacher at the beginning of the semester told us that if we have a 90% in the class going into the final, we wouldn't have to take it. Going into the final, I was sitting at an 89.17% in the class, literally less than 1% away from not having to take the exam. I knew the final was due on Saturday, May 15th, but I just assumed that it was due at midnight because that's been the norm for every single assignment. Well, it turns out that the final was actually due at 5 p.m. and I missed the deadline by an hour and the teacher doesn't allow any late submissions. The final was worth 300 points, so that means I went from getting nearly an A in the class to flunking the class because of one assignment. Which means I'll have to take the class over again. And #X200B. And #X200B. Doctor, I accidentally missed my final exam, and went from an A in the class to an F in the class. So this isn't quite an "I don't work here" post, because I do work at the place that this has happened. But it's starting to annoy me because I'm clearly not on the clock and I haven't even gone into work yet. I know people have gotten crazier since the whole pandemic started. But yeah, I've had 2 different people drive up to me in their cars while I'm in the parking lot at the store I work at and just going into work. The first time, I was walking into work, carrying my vest and looking at my phone. I obviously was just going in and wasn't on the clock. A lady pulled right up next to me, rolled down her window, and asked me if I knew if we had any more flowers. This was right before Mother's Day, so a lot of people were trying to get them. I just told her I was just coming, so I honestly didn't know. The second time it happened, I had barely even gotten out of my car and was still grabbing some of my belongings that I was taking in with me. We also have to park as far back away from the building as possible, and it was early morning and nobody else was anywhere nearby. And this woman just drove right up to me demanding to know when the store opened. This particular day was one of the days that we have the first hour reserved for medical workers/first responders. A couple other days of the week it's for seniors over 65, so I told her we were about to open at 7 for medical workers, but that we open at 8 for the general public. Then she replied, "So I can go in now?" And I was just like, "Yeah, if you're a medical worker," but I'm going to assume she probably wasn't. Then she just drove off and drove up to the front doors, which of course have signs about our current hours. And then I think she just left and didn't even go in the store. Like, why didn't she just drive up to the front and look at the sign in the first place instead of ambushing me while I was still at my car? Not only is it annoying to be harassed when I'm not on the clock, but I'm a cautious person, and a fairly small woman. I really don't like people approaching me in parking lots, and especially not when I'm at my car parked way back away from the building where it's likely that no one else is going to be nearby, unless one of my coworkers happens to be parked near me and is going in/leaving at the same time I'm coming in. Luckily in both of these instances, the ambushers were women who didn't appear to be too threatening, but still. WTF. Just stop it, people. Tifu by indirectly breaking both of my cousin's ankles on his graduation. Today was my cousin's graduation. It was just a small gathering at my uncle's house where my cousin put on his gown and cap and took pictures. I had bought a motorcycle last November but I'm at college and needed to fix it up and I've only came back home recently. I finished fixing it 2 days ago and I absolutely love it, haven't even looked at my car since then. I get to the graduation and a meeting and everyone's hanging out. My cousin wants to drive the motorcycle so I give him the keys and he drives off. We used to ride dirt bikes as kids so I knew he knew how to ride and I wasn't scared. Only for my uncle, his dad, to get a call about 15 minutes later. Apparently both of his ankles are broken and the bone is sticking out of one. We just went to pick up my bike and we're on the way to the ER. 2 ankles broken and apparently a concussion. He's on a sports scholarship and I'm feeling really guilty. I've searched that it takes at least 6 weeks for broken ankles to heal, but I'm gonna out on a limb and say that his bone poking out means it's completely snapped and will take way longer. Currently pulling into the hospital parking lot. DL, doctor, let my cousin drive my motorcycle and he broke his ankles and one is completely snapped. I may have costed him his entire sports scholarship. Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer, excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me. Bar manager, I'm sorry love, what do you want? C, I'm not your love. Stares. BM, I'm sorry, can I get you anything? C, I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long. BM, I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you? C, well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served. BM, I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now, what would you like? C, for free? BM, sorry, I can't do them for free. C, why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do. BM, I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not? C, of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay. BM, you can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer. C, fine. But I don't want you to serve me. BM, why not? C, because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. BM, well everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, what difference does it make who pours your drinks? C, well I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else. BM, well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them. C, are you kidding? Flip you. BM, flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Commence ranting and shouting followed by the bouncer escorting her out. So, I'm not /that/stupid. I'm not great with common sense, and I'm definitely plenty more book smart. However, today I hit a new low. I paint. I like to let my paint palette get very messy, for the aesthetic. However, it had reached a point where it was hard to get a level amount of paint on the palette, as there was so much build-up. So I softened the paint under a hot tap, and aimed to scrape the paint off of the palette. Now, I do have scrapers. I have 3 scrapers. But for some reason, my donkey brain decides that since a knife is closer, I'd just use that. This may have been fine. It may have been fine, if I laid the knife flat, and supported the pallet against a surface, probably safer to rest it vertically, and push down against the sink. But anything would have been better, than holding one end in one hand, and pushing the knife down with the other. In the direction of my holding hand. Doctor, I shoved a knife through my finger today, because I was too lazy to even prop my pallet against the sink. Needless to say, the nurses at A&E laughed, a lot. When I was 14, life got a bit too much and I spent 5 months in a psych ward. It was a miserable place, and what scared me most was the abuse that was happening. Emotional, physical, and later sexual. There were a few members of staff who did things such as trying to undress the patients or coming into our rooms when we were naked and refusing to leave. I was touched once during a restraint by a nurse who had lied about his qualifications and had never been taught how to restrain. The one member of staff I trusted was Derek. He was young and nice, and he told me stories about his childhood in Ghana, where he'd had a parrot who answered the phone. He loved to discuss documentaries and join in with whatever the patients were doing. He let me paint his nails yellow, and to this day yellow nail varnish on black skin terrifies me. To be honest, he seemed a bit thick. He had an innocent and childish air about him, and everybody loved him. What haunts me the most is that he walked in on me during 2 different suicide attempts. He was nice and took me to the nurse. It could have been a lot worse. Then he just stopped coming into work. One day the police came in and asked us individually if we'd noticed any staff acting inappropriately. I thought they were talking about a different member of staff who had touched a patient inappropriately whilst tucking her into bed and was just generally creepy. I also told them about the nurse who had touched me between my legs whilst restraining me. I told them all about it, and I could tell that the police were confused. "We're asking about Derek." I was shocked. I told them that Derek was a great guy and I didn't think he'd ever hurt somebody. He even let me paint his nails for him. He was sweet and trustworthy. Over the coming months I started to notice that there were warning signs though. He'd once taken his shirt off to show us scars on his back from being beaten. I remembered that one of the victims had recently got a new phone, and I realized that Derek had bought it for her as a bribe. A few days later she was crying inconsolably, which I later found out was because he had kissed her. Another patient had suddenly been moved the day before he'd disappeared. Years passed, I was discharged, and I tried to forget about it. Then one of the victims died and it all came back. I found out that he had raped one girl and performed a romatio on another. He'd seduced and bribed one and performed the act in her room, taken the other to a secluded area and done it with no warning. Since then another girl has died, but she wasn't a victim of his. The surviving victim has attempted suicide several times. He's being tried currently, and I hope very much that he will be found guilty. What he did was unspeakable, made even worse by the fact that both victims were already XA survivors and were therefore convinced that they had imagined the whole thing. So Derek the rapist, let's not meet. Before I start, this isn't a pity me story, I'm fine. I want to share this because it was ridiculous. I'd met this guy, let's call him DG for delusional guy. I was 16 at the time, he seemed alright, and back then I didn't see the red flags as red flags. So naturally when he started opening up to me about his abusive ex-girlfriends and how he was such a nice guy and they took advantage of it, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Boy, was I wrong. Fast forward to a year later, DG asks me out and I say yes. Over the course of 2 years, he started creating problems where there weren't any, all the time. He was always the poor victim, I was always wrong. Eventually it got to a point where he'd get mad for anything that didn't involve paying attention to him exclusively. Including sleeping. Always twisting it to make it look like it was the worst crime ever committed. He'd compare me a lot with his ex, let's call her Girl. Girl had supposedly tried to contact him again, but he didn't want anything to do with her because she was toxic and she cheated on him. Here's an example of him getting mad at me for problems he created himself. Once he sent me a random nude and I didn't want to anger him, so I reacted positively. And it became all about how he was a nice guy and I was treating him like a sex object. Few weeks later he sent me another nude, and since I didn't want to make him feel like a sex object I stayed neutral about it. And of course I was still a monster because I was making him feel unattractive and insecure. There was just no winning with him. I found a job in a fast food restaurant a couple years ago and I broke up with him shortly after, since I was seeing normal humans again, and of course I could suddenly see the entire relationship was far from normal. Not only that, but I found out Girl hadn't cheated on DG. He had cheated on her. She dumped him and he tried to get her back throughout our entire relationship. So much for not wanting to do anything with her, and she's trying so hard to contact me. He was also actively cheating on me with another girl. After I dumped him, He begged me to give him a chance but I said no. So he sent me a million texts whining about how he was such a nice guy again and he still cared even after how I treated him and I was a piece of shoot. I just blocked him and refused to see him so he started sending his friends. He is still in complete denial and by now I'm probably another evil toxic ex who broke his heart in his feel-bad stories for his next girl.